Ukrainian edition of The King of Scars. We just received it today, so it's fresh from the press. So
that's exciting. That looks
it
good.
It was actually a race to have it printed on time, because the printing is in Kharkiv. It's in the northeast of the country. It's the city right close to the border. So, and they are being shelled constantly. So like last week, they have announced that, you see, we were sorry, we were supposed to bring you the books like last week, but since we're being heavily shelled, we can't print at night. We can only print during the day. And everyone is like, wait, so up to now, so you're printing like day and night? So, wow. So that's that.
I'm never to complain about anything ever again. Like this is intense.
Don't worry, we can we can still, I don't know, say bad things about weather, politics, fashion, and some things. So that's I'm giving you a green card to complain about anything you want.
Well, I will probably go back to complaining, knowing me, but it blows my mind that you are all managing to work under these circumstances, and to print books feels like just a tremendous act of resistance, and it's just beautiful, and I'm grateful for it. So yeah, it really shows your mettle, and it's very impressive. Like, it's really inspirational.
Thank you. Okay, so we're actually live. So let me switch back to Ukrainian for a second to do a short introduction, and we'll revert back to English. Любі друзі, пані і панове, доброго дня! Вас вітає YouTube-канал видавництва Віват, видавництва бестселерів, новинок, найкращих у світі авторів, як українських, так і перекладних. Мене звати Дар'я Піскозуб, я авторка технофентезі «Машина», а також ведуча фентезі-заходів на YouTube-каналі видавництва Віват. І сьогодні у нас неймовірна зустріч, просто final boss фентезі, авторка цілого майже десятка книг, наскільки мені вже відомо, у грошаверсії, Лі Бардуго, авторка трилогії «Тінікістка», дилогії «Шістка воронів» та новесенької дилогії «Король шрамів», яку я ось уже тримаю в руках. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today we have an interview with Leigh Bardugo, the creator of the Grishava series, the creator of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, Six of Crows duology, and King of Scars duology that has just came out Ukrainian, and I'm holding it in my hands. Hello, Leigh.
Hi, it's great to see you.
It's actually super great to see you here, and actually have a small story for you, sort of start off our interview. So years ago, I think maybe like 7 or maybe 6 years ago, I was still an aspiring author. I was just starting my debut book, and I had this friend who was also an aspiring author, and we were talking about which publishing house in Ukraine we would like to use as our big break. And she told me that, there is this publishing house. I saw that there was this book, and I was just, it blew blown off my mind. It was so well done. It was so beautiful, so nice. And I asked, what is that book? And it was The Six of Crows. So that book was what made me think of this printing house, your Ukrainian editor, a Ukrainian publisher. And years later, when both she and I became printed authors, the corona happened, and we both had books we really wanted to present to the world. We were like, okay, so another apocalypse call. And all the festivals were canceled, closed, everything was closed. And at that time, we thought, what if we joined together in Zoom or like anything else, broadcast it online and share that with the world? And that is how one of the biggest channels speaking about Ukrainian and worldly sci-fi and fantasy translated in Ukrainian started. So in both cases, I guess I have to thank you for doing what it is that you've done that helped us find the way to this very day.
That is beautiful. And I feel like I played a very tiny part in that, but I'm so excited that I'm so thrilled that you both got published and that then you were able to do this incredible thing and build this audience. It's really great.
Yeah, thank you. So how is it that we're going to conduct this interview? We're going to be sort of jumping a little bit between the books in the Grishaverse. We'll talk about the King of Scars, the sort of most fresh book out of all of those. We'll talk a little bit about some previous ones, like the Six of Crows duology. We'll talk a little bit about your Netflix adaptation. We'll talk about the Ninth House, and sort of just try to go here and there because there is a bit of a peculiar order in which the books were translated. There was first Six of Crows, then Shadow and Bone, and we haven't actually had the third book in the Shadow and Bone series yet. So we're sort of going here and there and trying to combine everything without doing spoilers, but we can't go.
King of Scars is not gonna quite make as much sense without that third book. So you are gonna get spoiled. Although, well, I don't know. I think it's actually kind of fun to read them out of order because one of the things I did was I played with the idea of what somebody knows, what the public story is and what the private story is. So people who read Six of Crows first think certain characters are dead, and people who then read Shadow and Bone will be in for a surprise. So it's sort of, yeah.
It was sort of just an introduction to you so that if there are some comments like spoiler, that it's just something we couldn't avoid.
Okay.
I'm going to speak English first, then translate to Ukrainian, and then we're going to switch to your answers.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'll first do a short intro in Ukrainian as well, and then we will have a head start. Пані і панове, сьогодні ми будемо говорити про весь Гришаверс і не лише про нього, а також про «Дев'ятий дім», Netflix-адаптацію творів Лі Бардуго та письмо, все, що його творить, що Лі любить, що ненавидить. І спілкуватимемося ми, власне, таким чином, що я задаватиму запитання спершу англійською, перекладатиму його українською, тоді Лі відповідатиме англійською, і я знову ж таки прийматиму естафету українською. Ми намагатимемося зробити стрім якомога жвавішим, динамічнішим, аби не сильно розтягувати мить через переклад. Однак просимо ваше розуміння, що абсолютно всі деталі ми повинні покрити. І також попереджаємо, що в Україні доволі цікавий порядок друку книг Лі. Спершу ми побачили дилогію «Шістка воронів», опісля почала друкуватися трилогія «Тінь і кістка», і, власне, книга, про яку ми говоримо нині, «Король шрамів», дуже сильно базується на усій трилогії «Тінь і кістка». Тому цілком можливо, що ви зловите спойлер. Чи є спосіб уникнути цих спойлерів? Ми постараємося уникнути, однак, якщо так трапиться, що ми зловимо спойлер, то просимо пробачення і сподіваємося, що таким чином не зіпсуємо нашу з вами розмову. Нагадаю також, що під час цієї розмови ми збиратимемо кошти для ГО «Валькірія», які планують закупити активні навушники для наших захисників на передовій. У чаті прямої трансляції є реквізити, за якими ви можете перекинути кошти. Велике прохання у коментар до трансляції закидувати ваш нікнейм у Інстаграмі, адже 10 найбільших донатів отримують ексклюзивну екоторбинку від Донес Віват із зображенням обкладинки книги «Король шрамів». So let's start. The first thing that I've actually wanted to ask you was a little bit about everything in Grishaverse. And to be precise is that the Grishaverse universe consists of a multitude of people coming from different countries, and the majority of those were inspired by real countries. For example, when we look at Ketterdam, we clearly know what country inspired that. So at the same time, the books in the Grishaverse have very different theme, tonality, even maybe I would say the feeling to them. So how did you come up with the idea of creating not one book, not a series, but a whole universe of fantasy books spanning from different countries, different ages, and different kind of characters?
I mean, I would like to tell you that it was all planned, but it wasn't. When I started writing Shadow and Bone, my only goal was to finish a single book. And it was the first, I was just determined to get through a novel. And about halfway through writing it, I realized that I didn't want to end the story. I didn't feel that it was finished. And so I started taking notes on what could be second and third books, but I didn't even know if I would sell one book, let alone 3. I don't know if I should stop and let you translate or if I should keep going.
You can keep going.
Okay. And then, after that trilogy was done, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to leave the Grishaverse for a little bit. I'm going to go do something else. But then I got the idea for Six of Crows. And I thought, okay, well, I know that this story doesn't belong in Ravka. It belongs in a very different country that would allow me to bring together all of these characters from different backgrounds. And I also wanted to move away from, Shadow and Bone is very much a traditional young adult story. It's a chosen one story. And I wanted to write a series that sort of responded to that. What happens to the people who don't have grand destinies, who don't have royal blood, who don't have great magical power, and how do they change the world? And then with King of Scars, this brings both of those series together. And I think in some ways it's the most traditional fantasy I've written. It's sort of the biggest in scope. There's big battles, there's magical creatures, there's an excavation of the source of magic. And so for me, it's always about following the story where I want to go. And the advantage to that is I get to write the books I want to write, not just, keep churning out something that, the next thing. I get to kind of reinvent the world every time I start a new series.
Отже, Лі хотіла би сказати, що це все було заплановано, і саме так з'явилося, як вона хотіла, однак, по правді, зовсім так не було. Коли Лі почала писати «Тіні кістку», все, що вона хотіла, це було дописати книгу. Разом з тим, пишучи її, вона зрозуміла, що не готова прощатися з цим світом, з цими персонажами, і захотіла написати ще. На той момент, втім, вона не була певна, чи зможе насправді продати не лише одну книжку, а цілих 3. Тож повинна була викласти абсолютно все, на що вона здатна у тій одній книзі. Дописавши трилогію «Тіні кістка», вона хотіла відпочити по правді від того світу, написати щось зовсім інше, однак прийшла ідея для дилогії «Шістка воронів», яка зовсім захопила її, однак при тому була абсолютно відмінною від першої трилогії. Перш за все тому, що Лі зрозуміла, що місце цієї історії не в Равці, а в зовсім іншому місці. Що у той час, як трилогія «Тіні кістка» – це класичне young adult fantasy із обранцем у центрі, із класичним варіантом розгортання магії, із шляхом персонажа тощо, то «Шістка воронів» вона розуміла, що це набагато темніша, доросліша і інша історія. Тож певною мірою вона зуміла таки змінити відчуття того, що пише. Повертаючись до «Короля шрамів», вона зуміла поєднати оці 2 величезні стовпи, на яких сиділа Young Adult класичний і набагато темніше, доросліше і складніше фентезі. І завдяки цьому вона змогла поєднати і монстрів в одній книзі, і битви, і розкопки того, як працює магія в певному світі тощо. Тобто вона намагається йти туди, куди веде її історія, не завжди знаючи, куди заведе, однак завжди розкопуючи, куди її заведуть персонажі і сюжет. Okay, so knowing that, and knowing that there are characters who spin from one book to the other one. And it is often that we can't really predict that, oh, look, there was this character we saw, and he was really a secondary character. He was kind of a simple character. Then we see him again, and he has a different role to play. See him again, and look, the character has a whole story. For example, the protagonist of King of Scars, Prince King Nikolai. So when it comes to characters like that, where they conceived to have this story that sort of unraveled and then unravels again with different theme, different objective, etc., or was it the desire to learn more about the character once you've created this character?
It depends on the character. So Nikolai was originally supposed to die at the end of Siege and Storm. His brother, his awful brother Vasily, was going to murder him, and Alina was going to be framed for the crime. And then I started writing Siege and Storm, and I enjoyed writing him so much that I thought, I don't want to write him off the page. And so his entire story changed. And I knew when I finished Ronin Rising that I wanted to give Nikolai his own story, his own love story, his own chance to be something more than the man with all the answers, because that I think being that person, being the person who's always the optimist, who always has the joke to tell, who always has the hope to give, it takes a toll, right? It can be quite, it can actually break you down because you're dealing with your own things and you feel the pressure to always be that person for everybody else. So in some ways, writing the character then, the act of writing the character reveals that character to me and begins to pose questions about them. Zoya started out as really just a mean girl. She's really just a foil for Alina in Shadow and Bone. But as those books progress, Zoya changes a lot. And she begins to form relationships with the people around her. And we begin to see another. When we get to King of Scars, I wanted the chance to explore who she was, why she was the way she was, but I never wanted to smooth her edges off. I wanted to let her keep being a little mean, I guess. I don't want to use the B word, but she is very tough, she's very abrasive, and she has her reasons.
Отже, про що я запитала? Про персонажів. У Гриша-версії ми зустрічаємо персонажів, які спочатку з'являються в одній іпостасі, в одній книзі, і нам здається, що ми знаємо, якими вони будуть, яка буде їхня роль, що ось це другорядний персонаж, ось це невеличкий лиходій, ось це обранець, тощо. Але разом з тим із книгу вони змінюються, вони отримують нову історію. Тож запитання до Лі було про те, чи на думку Лі вона одразу планувала написати таку довгу історію, скажімо, про Штурмгонда, чи про когось ще, чи це було натхненно роботи текстом. І відповідь така, що головний персонаж книги «Король шрамів» повинен був померти у трилогії «Тінь-кістка». Убити його повинен бути його старший брат, страшний старший брат на літеру В. І звинуватити у тому мали Аліну, головну героїню трилогії «Тінь і кістка». Разом з тим, коли Лі почала його писати, зрозуміло, що настільки подобається його творити, що вона не хоче поки що вбивати цього персонажа. Їй більше того хочеться відчути, яка його історія, як він зміниться, яка буде його історія любові, історія становлення тощо. Бо направду, коли ти ненастанний оптиміст, коли ти є та людина, котра надихає інших, котра допомагає іншим скинути певний біль із грудей, із плечей, тобі самому може бути тяжко, власне, тому що ти можеш у цю мить проходити певні якісь свої трансформації. І мені хотілося насправді зламати персонажа, тому що зламати персонажа означає розкрити, яка буде його історія, як він трансформується, як він перетвориться у когось іншого. А от на противагу головному персонажу Короля Шрамів інша персонажка Зоя повинна бути насправді такою злючкою. Не хотілося б говорити, що вона була дамочка на літеру С. Однак, зрештою, вона для мене перетворилася із просто обгортки відбиття Аліни у повноправну персонажку, яка у книзі «Король Шрамів» насправді розкриває, чому вона така, яка вона є. Так вона кусюча, так вона саркастична, так вона не дасть себе образити, і цьому є конкретна причина. Okay, so moving on, there is something that I've heard in one of your interviews, and I was wondering if there is something that changed on that matter or something that grew on. I heard that the first series of Shadow and Bone was written, as I think you stated, I might be mixing words or forgetting how it was precisely said, but you've mentioned that it was your personal search for light amidst darkness, searching your way out, finding yourself as a chosen one. Have you felt this sort of personal theme, personal reasoning for the next installments in the Grishaverse, for example, for Sister of Crows or for King of Scars?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only way we can write, is to feel that deep personal connection to the story. And I don't always know what that is until the first draft is written. I think when I was writing Shadow and Bone, I was grappling with very serious depression. And that book became a way of remembering that I could be good at something and that I was capable of more than I had come to believe. And I think that, you know, the process of writing and the process of creation shows us things that we maybe don't know. And you're a writer, so I think that you probably have had this experience yourself. You know, when I wrote Six of Crows, I didn't think very much about the fact that Kaz walked with a cane, but it was not a coincidence that this was the same time when I was starting to come to grips with my own disability and what it means to live with chronic pain. And I think that, you know, the part of me was writing a kind of a wish fulfillment, a self-insert character, this person who had so much swagger and who was so tough. And I think I see myself in the characters of Six of Crows, maybe more so than in the characters of Shadow and Bone. But I think when I was writing King of Scars, you know, when I talk about Zoya's anger or I talk about Nikolai's hope, those are my feelings too. And when I wrote Ninth House, you know, Alex Stern and I are very different characters, but I think that, you know, the idea of being a survivor and of not letting the world decide who you are, getting to make that choice yourself, is something that I feel is at the core of probably all of my stories. So yeah, I think that personal connection is always there.
Наступне питання насправді про те, про що особисто була історія різних книг Гришаверсу для Лі. У одному з інтерв'ю вона згадувала, що написала першу, власне, книгу у Гришаверсі «Тіні кістка», намагаючись для себе знайти вихід із складної життєвої ситуації, певною мірою знайти світло поміж темряви. І відповідь у тому, що лише відчуваючи особистий зв'язок із тим, що відбувається у книзі, ти можеш написати хорошу книгу. Часом ти навіть не здогадуєшся, який особистий зв'язок ти маєш із персонажем. Часом ти просто розкопуєш те, що тобі цікаво, і зрештою знаходиш те, що відповідає якійсь твоїй проблемі, болю, чи просто ситуації, в якій ти знаходишся. От, скажімо, написала книгу «Тіні кістки» Лі, будучи у тривалій депресії. Їй необхідно було розкопати в собі відчуття, що далі може бути щось краще, ніж те, що є зараз, що вона здатна на щось краще, ніж те, що є зараз, як спробу в певній мірі відчути себе обранцею, так як зрештою стала Аліна. З іншого боку, Казбрекер починався як персонаж, який просто виходить із ціпочком. Однак, зрештою, в той самий момент Лі зрозуміла, що вона теж проходить через історію прийняття своєї хвороби, що так, я можу жити з хронічними болями, так, що це про мене. І певною мірою це навіть було бажання реалізувати певні бажання, що вийшло у Каза, то вийде у мене. Говорячи про короля шрамів, то, власне, оскільки у «Шісті воронів» Лі бачить себе більше, ніж у «Тіні і кістці», то на етапі короля шрамів уже відчувала себе Лі по-різному у різних персонажах. Гнів і лють Зої був відповіддю на її певні почуття, або ж оптимізм Штурмгонда. Зрештою, це не обмежено лише Гришаверсом, адже Алекс із «Дев'ятого дому», її інакшість, сміливість визнати це і пірнути у власну темряву – це теж щось, що завжди зачіпає Лі, щось, що завжди мусиш відчути для того, аби створити хорошу історію. I can feel you hearing the words of the characters that you know, and there is like this Klingon gibberish for me that you're hearing, and among that is like Alina, Darkling, or like Mal, or whoever else, and I understand how that feels when you hear something like that. There is something that I've wanted to ask you about one of the characters that I felt maybe even closest to in the Six of Crows. I think last year when I was doing a discussion with other fantasy writers in Ukraine about what do we feel about the Netflix adaptation for Shadow and Bone, we were playing the game of kiss, marry, or kill with the characters. And everyone basically agreed that at some point, all of us would like to kiss Nina. And then we see Nina transcend what we thought of her in the Six of Crows. And then here she is again, very much changed and essentially breaking our expectations of her in the biggest way imaginable. She went to the country, sort of not the one that the Grisha would really like to go to. So my question to you is, how was it from the storyteller point of view that you felt what she went through? How hard was that? Or maybe was there a character whose transition maybe was even more painful than hers?
Oh, writing grief is so personal. And so writing, oh, did I lose you? Oh, you're back. Okay.
I'm here. Sorry, just needed to turn off my light.
That's okay. Writing grief, I think, is very personal. And I think some of the scenes in King of Scars were probably for Nina, were some of the hardest to write for me, because you are drawing, or I was drawing on my own experiences, and I feel I always want to be as honest as possible with my readers. So if somebody experiences trauma, it just doesn't just go away because they fell in love. If somebody loses somebody dear to them, that isn't necessarily healed by finding somebody else to love. That these are things, we solve the problem, but the problem will come back again and again. That's the nature of being human. I think that Nina's journey takes us some pretty extreme places. But I would also say, I think that, Kaz's journey and Nej's journey, they're much more reserved people. And so, it's the journey they go on is quieter, but I think it is also pretty profound in terms of their ability to connect with each other and to overcome their pasts. And to forge relationships, not just with each other, but with the people around them. It's somebody posted recently one of the final scenes in Crooked Kingdom, and I never go back and read my books. I just find it too stressful. But I was like, it really struck me that how important it was to me that I know that people focus on the romances, but that all of these relationships between these characters are just, they come from a very deep place inside me. And I would say too, that like both Nikolai and Zoya are reckoning with who they've been and the way they've chosen to live and finding a new way to be. In terms of being allowed to be vulnerable to other people, I think that is a pretty steep journey as well. I don't think it really pays off until Rule of Wolves, but it at least starts in King of Scars.
There's something I feel you're very much right of, is that this is always very much personal. And I think I've had an interview with Rebecca Kwan, and she's writing historical fiction about the historical trauma that her ancestors went through, about Chinese-Japanese War, etc. And I think what she said that I felt really resonated with what you've said is that there is a degree to which we are, to which the trauma traumatized us, that we can write it out, heal ourselves, well, to an extent that we can. And then there is this way, there is this level after which we might be so very much scarred that it might be hard even for us to write that out. And if we write it out, it will still remain with us. That's why I think if I were to write down everything that I felt since the invasion started, I'm not sure I would personally be able to dive that deep as to put the final dot and say, okay, I've written this down and I think I'm healed. But then again, if we did not write, we'd probably go mad with all of those things.
Okay, writing isn't therapy, right? Therapy is therapy, you know, and it can be therapeutic to write. But I think that's very important to acknowledge that, look, there is nobody who gets to live without trauma, and there is nobody who gets to live without hardship. And the question is, can we acknowledge that these things stay with us and still find a way to live with joy? You know, I tend to believe our enemies win if we can't, you know, and that's one of the ways that they get us. And it feels foolish to be talking to somebody who's literally under siege right now and be like, but joy and life. But I think too, like, you know, when we write, we're not just writing for ourselves. We're not just writing a journal. We're not just writing a diary entry. When we put those things down on the page, we are extending a lifeline to someone else. We're saying, I'm giving you this part of myself. I'm speaking to you across borders, across oceans. I'm reaching out to you through this shelf, through this book, through this page to find connection. And I think that that is good for us and it's good for others as well. So no, writing a story won't heal us and it won't change the circumstances that we're in. But I do believe the process of putting our stories out into the world does change the world.
Отже, ми прийшли до теми Ніни у книзі «Шістка воронів» та продовженні «Короля шахраїв». Ніна – це та персонажка, яка мене особисто дуже вразила. Обговорюючи світ Гришаверсу разом із фантастичними токс, чий канал, до речі, рекомендую вам відвідати і підписатися. Ми з дівчатами грали у гру «Кого би ми хотіли поцілувати, кого вбити і з ким одружитися». І Ніна була персонажкою, яку всі хотіли поцілувати, власне, тому що вона така енергійна, тому що така весела, тому що така крута насправді. А тоді починається, власне, Король шрамів, і Ніна змінюється дуже сильно по відношенню від того, що трапилося з нею у фіналі «Королівства шахраїв». І це величезна історія болю. І запитання долі було, власне, чи був, може, персонаж, якого писати психологічно було ще важче, чи було психологічно важко писати саму Ніну. Відповідь була наступна, що оповідь про травми, біль, розпуку і відчай завжди дуже персональні. завжди створювати їх дуже тяжко, тому що в цей момент ми пропускатимемо все, що ми втратили, кого ми втратили, як ми втратили, і тощо. І при тому, навіть коли ми вважаємо, що ми там в тексті описали певний біль, певний сум, в цьому моменті ми все одно згадуємо про цю втрату. І насправді писати Ніну було дуже круто, власне, тому що вона дуже відкрита, вона дуже життєрадісна, вона дуже активна. І, власне, її історія болю дуже візуально активно розкривається. Скажімо, історія болю Каза або Інеш була б набагато більш стриманою, бо, власне, вони набагато стриманіші люди. Хтось запостив фінал в інтернеті, одну з фінальних сцен Королівства шахраїв, і Лі була вражена, тому що вона, по правді, ніколи не перечитує свої книги. І коли вона побачила цю запущену фінальну сцену, то їй самі довелося наново відчути цю історію, в цей фінал історії втрати, як вона совається. І насправді таким чином вона ще раз це відчула і розуміє, що такі історії ми відчуватимемо завжди. Тож так, такі історії найважчі, вони найбільш персональні, але вони також допомагають нам самим. І, власне, говорячи про персонажів Короля Шрамів, то і Штурмгонд, і Зоя обоє теж певною мірою розкриватимуться по-різному суму, болю, також вони по-різному будуть сприймати те, що з ними відбувається, і по-різному це переходити. Однак дуже варто нагадати, що письмо не терапія. Терапія – це терапія. І коли ми пишемо щось, ми звертаємося до всього світу. Ось, я тут, візьми мою руку, давай сформуємо зв'язок, я розповім тобі свій біль, тобі стане легше сприймати твій. І письмо не зцілить нас, але воно точно допоможе змінити світ, принаймні на йоту. There is something that I felt very much when I was watching the Shadow and Bone adaptation was that there are small changes here and there, in some places smaller, in some places a bit bigger, but they very much enhance the story and open it up in new ways. For example, when I was reading The Fast Shadow and Bone, I really wanted something proactive from Mal to express his love to Alina. Because otherwise, there were like Darkling stands and it was Mal stands, and I was sort of standing in between because like that was cute, but he didn't show like how much he wants to be with that main character. And then in the adaptation, we actually see him physically moving towards his true north. We're seeing the way that not only he desires to be there with Alina, but also hear it in his letters, etc. And how was it? How did you feel about changing your own canon, essentially? Did you feel like this is something of a try for you to come back to your own past words and rewrite what you feel you would do differently now? Or would you say that this was something that the showrunner came up with and you felt like, you know what, this might be good?
I mean, the difference to me, I don't actually think it's radically different. The difference is that the trilogy is told exclusively from Alina's point of view. And the exception is that there's, in one of the editions, there's a letter from Mal. And that letter actually became the basis of his point of view for the television show. And to me, it was an opportunity, the wonderful thing about shooting a television show is then you get to see the points of view of other characters. And the Mal is one example of that. We get to actually see him lose Mikhail and Dubrov as opposed to just telling Alina about it later. And so I think that there's an opportunity for connection and understanding what it means to be a First Army soldier that doesn't exist in the book. I think too, you get a perspective from the Crows that you certainly don't get in the books, where you're getting to see the way they view these characters who are going through these things. And that of course was something I had never really conceived of, because the duology takes place 2 years after the end of the trilogy. So that was completely an invention of writer's room and Eric Heiserer. And for me, I thought it held up very well. I thought that it still stayed very honest to the characters. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it because I know there's a lot of Mal haters out there. And to me, Archie did such a beautiful job of playing him. And honestly, Mikhail and Dubrov, who are just these kind of like bros in the book, become something completely different on the show. And I became huge fans of them. And I was sorry that we couldn't have a little Mikhail and Dubrov show.
For the record, I'm not a Mal hater. I feel like after the show, I sort of transitioned from this, canon of a YA reader that, okay, that is a dark, brooding character with some ominous motivation. I'm going to fall in love with him. Right towards, okay, this one is sensible, he has clear motives and does not have some shady agenda, so I'm going to stick with him.
Well, you have to wait for season 2 because maybe you'll feel differently after you meet Nikolai.
Okay. I'm going to keep your word on that. Отже, поговоримо трошечки про екранізацію. І у Netflix-адаптації трилогії «Тінь кістка» ми бачимо певні переміни до книг. Однією з таких перемін є роль Мала у пошуку Аліни. У книзі, чого бракувало особисто мені, було розуміння того, наскільки сильно він хоче до Аліни, яка його мотивація і наскільки сильно ми повинні вболівати, по суті, за нього, а не за Дарклінга. Це питання було до Лі, власне, як вона ставиться до перемін її власного канону. Звідки прийшли ці переміни? Чи прийшли вони із її власної ретроспективи того, що вона вже написала, чи певною мірою це був постріл в небо від творців серіалу і щось, що припало їй до душі, що вона зрозуміла, що їй сподобалося би більше. І відповідь наступна. Трилогія «Тінь кістка» ведеться лише із точки зору Аліни. Єдиний виняток до цього правила є лист Мала, який той надсилає їй і який вона читає. Власне, цей лист і став джерелом для натхнення серіалу, аби показати лінію Мала. І сама магія екранізації в тому, що ми не зобов'язані прив'язуватись лише до одного персонажа. Ми можемо бачити багатьох, ми можемо зрозуміти їх і закохатися в них так, як ми, можливо, не змогли би у книзі. От, скажімо, стосовно Мала, я не відчуваю, що ми щось поміняли. Ми просто завдяки кінематографу зуміли змінити лінзу, змінити перспективу і стежити за кількома персонажами водночас. І ми насправді бачимо, як він твориться як персонаж. Ми бачимо, як він втрачає своїх колег у бою. Ми бачимо, як фізично він рухається до Аліни і наскільки йому важливо бути з нею. І таким чином ми по-справжньому бачимо його наново. Те саме стосується персонажів «Шістки воронів», адже їх у трилогії зовсім нема, однак у серіалі вони є. І для нас це можливість зустрітися з кожним із них, роззнайомитися, зачепитися за них і зрозуміти зрештою, що за персонажі у нас попереду. Лі свідома того, що не всі люблять Мала, багато його не люблять, однак вона вірить, що екранізація зробила своє діло, ну і також актор, який зіграв його, просто зруйнував всі стереотипи відношенню Мала і взагалі став лапулею. I've actually done an interview with Victoria Schwab a couple of weeks ago, and we spoke with her about her Netflix adaptation as well, The Past Girl. And she said that while thinking of television and books as essentially the core of the same thing, the storytelling, the reality is very much different in its perception and most of all in the role that you personally, as a creator of some world, some character, some plot, have. You also had experience working with essentially the same content creator with Netflix. So transitioning from the writer who creates books to the writer who essentially helps out with creating a cinematic experience. How was that transition?
I mean, I think Victoria was much more involved in First Kill. I believe she was in the writer's room every single day, which I was not. I came in every week or two, and they would pitch me their stories for each episode, and we would talk through them and argue about them sometimes. And sometimes I would just be thrilled because they came up with so many good things. I would say the big difference between being an author and collaborating on a television show is the collaboration. When you're an author, you get to play God. The only person who really has an powerful influence on you is your editor and your critique partners, your friends who you choose to share the work with. And you have the final say, really, on anything. I imagine there are probably cases where you'd have to do battle with your editor, but I've never had one of those. So you are the final say, you're the final authority. And that book that goes out, it's your work. Television is an entirely different thing. It's, and film as well. You take this thing, you offer up the script or you give notes on the script, and then it's the director, the actors, the executives at the company, at Netflix. They all have a say in it, and all of those contributions go into something else. Part of that is really fun, okay? Like sitting with the showrunner for Ninth House and getting to talk through the pilot, re-break it, rewrite scenes, I love. So, writing is so solitary, and all of a sudden it's like play again. But part of it is awful, because you don't get to be the final voice. And sometimes they make choices you hate and that you can't do anything about. And you're having this thing that exists in your head and your imagination snatched away from you. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that is always wonderful. It isn't. And I will also say that I took a big step back from season 2 of Shadow and Bone because I love writing books. I don't want to be a TV writer. My dream job is being a novelist. And I was lucky enough to get that job. So I'm going to hold on to that. And I needed to carve out time to write books again. And to be honest, it was such a joy to go back into a world that I really still have control over. If Ninth House gets made, this will change too. But writing that sequel, I don't have to worry about budget. I don't have to worry about casting. I don't have to worry about what the network will think. It's just me.
If one day Netflix just comes to me and say like, hey, do you want to do everything but we adapt your book? I'm like, hell yeah. I'm not sleeping for the next 5 years, but I'll do it.
Do it. It's definitely worth it.
Definitely so, but I do feel that I would really like to see more of your book. So I'm not complaining about your decision. Поговоримо трішки про екранізацію. І у інтерв'ю із Вікторією Шваб, яке та дала ютуб-каналу «Фантастичні Докс», вона оповіла про те, що оповідання історій, як у літературі, так і на екрані, видається у своєму ядрі, у своїй суті доволі схожим процесом. Однак, коли пірнути в це, розумієш, що ніскільки. Перш за все, тому що по-іншому ти пишеш, по-іншому розбудовуєш сюжет тощо. А найважливіше, власне, тому що ти працюєш із величезною командою. І це щось, що слід зрозуміти кожному. І запитання було про досвід Лі, власне, переходячи із письменниці книг, із творчині світу на папері до творчині фантастичного світу на екрані. Відповідь наступна. Мабуть, Вікторія Шваб більш тісно співпрацювали з Нетфліксом, ніж я. У той час, як Вікторія Шваб майже кожного дня сиділа у кімнаті зі сценаристами та працювала плідно з ними над новими і новими витками сюжету, я доволі нечасто забігала, всього-навсього десь раз на тиждень, і ми проговорювали нові ідеї, обговорювали, куди зайде текст, сюжет тощо. І, власне, справді найбільшою різницею є колаборація, коли ти письменник, ти Бог цього світу. Єдині люди, які можуть збити тебе з шляху праведного, який ти для себе обрав, це редактор та бета-рідери. І навіть тоді редактор все одно людина, яка про тебе турбується, леліє твій текст і шукає якогось спільного знаменника між вами. Телебачення – це зовсім інше царство. Це царство, в якому ти даєш текст, і абсолютно всі від акторів до продюсерів, сценаристів, директорів по звуку та світлу мають певний внесок у твій світ і можуть приймати певні рішення. І часом це чудово, тому що ти немов би у пісочниці граєшся своїми ідеями, своїм світом, своїми персонажами, а часом, по правді, жахливо, адже хтось зробить рішення, яке тобі аж ніяк не подобається, і ти абсолютно не можеш нічого з цим зробити. У другому сезоні серіалу «Тінь і кістка» Лі довелося насправді трошки менше працювати із серіалом. Чому? Тому що мрія Лі завжди була писати книги, і неймовірно пощастило по правді тим займатися. І, власне, це так кайфово, коли не треба думати про бюджет, кастинги або інші штуки, які начебто зв'язані із своїм світом, але певною мірою ним не є. От, таким чином, любі друзі, ми можемо очікувати, що від Лі Бардуго ми отримаємо більше книг. І оскільки ми говоримо про більше книг, то я використаю свою карту модератора і просто безжально пропіарю вам, проспойлерю вам деякі новинки. Перш за все скажу, що друга книга «Дев'ятого дому» вийде у видавництві «Віват». Так що у мене і тут нема, але ви знаєте, що робити, коли книга виходить: лайкати, шерити, любити, купляти. І якщо вам сподобається, а я знаю, вам сподобається, тому це просто тактовна фраза для того, щоб здавалося, що вам не сподобається, можливо, тоді ми запросимо Лі на ще одну розмову і будемо із нею говорити ще більше. So there are a couple of questions we have from the audience. We actually have a lot of, but we will limit ourselves to a couple of those. And while I'm going through with those, I wanted to remind everyone that we are gathering money for the soldiers on the Ukrainian front. We're going to use the money that we're going to gather today to buy them the active headphones that allow the soldiers to not be overwhelmed with the sound of shooting, and at the same time still be able to hear everything that's going on around them.
Match whatever we make, I will match the contribution.
Okay, that is incredible. Лі Бардуго щойно анонсувала, що вона продублює ту суму, яку ми зберемо. In this case, I will, at the end of the stream, I'll ask the administrator to let us know how many hryvnias we gathered. I'll try to transfer them to dollars, and then I'll tell you in both currencies. Okay, so the first question that we have is about friendship. And that is something that I wanted to ask you as well. I think last year I had an interview with Holly Black, and we asked her, how does the friendship with other writers affect her? And she said that, you know, I'm friends with Leigh Bardugo, so Cardan Greenbrier is the way he is. He's this sassy, batty, read because of her. So if you have any questions, you can direct them to her because she made me write him this way. So how does friendship with other writers affect you? Is there maybe something similar that happened with your characters and plot that was affected by your writer buddies?
I would love to take credit for Cardan, but I cannot. He was fully intact when my only contribution was just saying to Holly, make it meaner, he should be meaner. So I don't know what that says about me, but and I will say that I love that series, and one of the great joys of my friendship with Holly was getting to read the books before everybody else did, because I was one of her critique partners on them. One of the great gifts of this career has been getting to know other writers. I mean, Holly, I was a fan of before I ever met her, and I was so nervous to meet her. And then to actually then get to go to her when I have a plot problem. The best things is to be on retreat and to sit down with Holly or Kelly Link or Sarah Rees Brennan and dig into the story. I mean, I feel like we are under tremendous pressure to write books quickly, and it's so hard to do that when it's just you on your own. And so having the input of these brilliant, amazing writers, Daniel Jose Older was one of my readers for Crooked Kingdom, and also one of my readers for Ninth House and for Hellbent. Like, it's not just like that they're encouraging you, they really have a huge impact on the characters. And I can say, okay, this is a very concrete thing. So when I wrote Crooked Kingdom, Holly and Sarah read it, Sarah Rees Brennan, and they were like, where's the romance? And I was like, it's romantic. They hold hands at the end. And they were like, give us more romance. And I was like, okay. So that bandaging scene where like Kaz and Inej, where Kaz is bandaging Inej, it took me, I think, like 37 versions to write that scene the way I wanted it. But that scene wouldn't exist if it weren't for them. And even like the Nina Matthias kiss would not be the same kiss without them. Like, I have a really bad tendency to focus on the plot, and I love a slow burn. Like, I love to just, when my role on the TV show was basically to be like, not yet, no kissing yet, not yet, because I love to draw it out. I want my readers to be screaming for the characters to kiss. So you have Holly and Sarah Rees Brennan to thank for all of the romance in my books.
I should probably start translating, but I just need to tell you that I'm in the same boat with you, because I have just submitted my second book to my writer friends, and I'm very much slow burner too. Like on the page 30, they have to look at us like each other without pure hatred. On page 230, they have to understand that maybe they're not complete douchebags. By page 400, they're like, okay, I can touch him. And then in the second or third book, they're going to hold hands, and I'm going to be shouting like this is so romantic. This is real romance. This is intimate. Yes, it is.
This is what I love. Like, just draw it out as long as possible. Yeah,
definitely. And shout out to my friend Irena, who actually texted me today that there is not enough sexy stuff in my book, and I need to make it spicier. I can now safely imagine that me and her are like you, Sarah Rees Brennan, and Holly Black, like just chilling and affecting each other's butts. Поговоримо трішки про дружбу. На інтерв'ю, яке Голі Блек дала, власне, мені на сторінці в Видавництва Віват, яке ви можете на цьому каналі перевірити, розказала Голі Блек про те, що Кардан Грінбраєр із трилогії «Жорстокий принц» така солодка падлюка, власне, через Лі Бардуго, через те, що вона показала їй текст та сказала, зроби його гіршим. От. І чи вплинули на Лі насправді дружба з іншими письменницями? Відповідь так, доволі сильно вплинули. І вплинула таким чином, що, перш за все, Лі би не хотіла казати, що ось я є причиною, що Кардан такий класний, я всього лиш капала на голову Голі, аби зробити його темнішим. Однак велика перевага цієї професії – це стати друзями з тим, ким ти захоплювався. Писати книги – це робота мало того, що самотня, однак автори під шаленим тиском видавати класні історії і видавати їх часто. І, власне, говорити із друзями, говорити із іншими письменниками неймовірно допомагає. Це дозволяє розвіяти певні турботи, це дозволяє впевнитись в тому, що твоя сцена хороша і так далі. От, скажімо, коли Лі написала «Королівство шахраїв», вона дала цей текст письменницям Голі Блек та Сарі Ріс Бреннан. І вони пожалілися, що чорт забирає, тут мало романтики. Лі, зроби якомога більше романтики. І через це Лі довелося конкретно попрацювати над її текстом. І, власне, сцена, де Каз перемотує руку Інеш бинтом, забрала їй близько 37 спроб написати, і, власне, нарешті стала такою, яка вдовольнила її подруг-письменниць. Або також це стосується історії із поцілунком Ніни і Матаєса. Лі, власне, за slow burn, за повільне розгортання любові. І, власне, на екранізації, на серіалі «Тінь і кістка» Лі була тією людиною, яка волала: ще ні, не дозволяєте їм цілуватись, не дозволяєте їм тримати за руки, це ще зарано, це має бути пізніше. So there's one last question that we have, and it's been here and there, just repeated, I think like maybe 10 times or so. It's about the ninth house, which is a completely different story, which is one that is very mature in the sense of how dark and how angsty we're going to go. And the question that everyone had is, how deeper into darkness are we going in book 2?
Okay. Obviously, I'm very close to the book. I think the book is really fun. But I also thought the ninth house was really fun and full of jokes. Like when people are like, it's so dark, I'm like, but it's funny too. So I think Hellbent is a little bit different. It's we do definitely go some dark places. That has not changed. There's some very horror. It is a horror book still in many ways. But I think that it is in some ways, I don't know, I think it has a lot more action than Ninth House. Oh, this is so hard to talk about without spoilers, because, okay, let me put it this way. There's basically a clock that starts ticking in the first act of this book. And so they really, really need to get Darlington out of hell. And I also think, like, I don't know, I just had a lot of fun writing it. My books always tend to be a little darker than I think they're going to be. And I think that's because I'm dealing with things that if we're going to explore them honestly, there's going to be darkness there. And there is certainly, I think, a very real reckoning with one's personal demons, both literal and figurative, in this book. But I think it's a pretty good adventure, so I hope people will enjoy it. This book is pretty bonkers, y'all. That's all I'll say.
When you said that your book is always a bit darker than you anticipated, I just felt like I heard my mother's voice in my head, because like I never gave her anything I wrote, and then I published my book and I gave it to her, and she was like, but you're such a cheerful person, where is this all darkness coming from? Like, what is going on with you? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, okay, it's for dramatic purpose, it's a story I'm telling, you have to be honest, etc., etc. But then she was like, are you sure? Like, if there's something you want to talk with me about, you can reach out to me, you know.
We're not the people who keep it quiet, like the people who are on Instagram being like, check out my avocado toast, they're the ones you have to worry about. We're the ones who are like, darkness, excellent, please bring it, demons, yes. We're fine. We're totally fine.
Yeah. Останнє запитання, на яке ми сьогодні поговоримо, це запитання про «Дев'ятий дім». «Дев'ятий дім» – історія значно темніша, доросліша і певною мірою майже антипод Гришаверсу. Запитання, яке турбує наших глядачів та слухачів, читачів, це це що ж очікувати від другої книги Hellbent? Чи буде вона ще темніша, ще складніша, ще доросліша? Відповідь така: чорт забирай, так. Але разом з тим Hellbent, він інший. У той час, як багато темних тем, багато проблемних, болючих точок, у другій книзі буде набагато більше екшену. І завдяки цьому, коли ми сприймаємо величезну купу темряви і елементів горору, ми також розслизаємо на коні екшену. І, скажімо, частина, де Алекс Стерн дістає Дарлінгтона із пекла, її писати було неймовірно весело. Якщо описати, як відчувається по-іншому друга книга, то уявіть, що є годинник, і він почав невпинно тікати один за одним. І окрім цієї всієї темряви, яка була у «Дев'ятому домі», також з'явилося це відчуття саспенсу, швидкості і потреби встигнути щось зробити. Книги Лі насправді завжди трошечки темніші, ніж їй здається, однак причина тому є та, що ми, як автори, повинні бути чесними із тим, наскільки тяжко буде розрулити та вся біда, в яку ми безжально впихуємо наших персонажів. Тому, любі друзі, ви можете очікувати, що друга книга трилогії про Алекс Стерн буде просто бляха-муха, яка темна. І таке. So with this said, I'm waiting, dear administrator, Katya, will you please give us the final sum of the money that we've gathered? In the meantime, while she's giving me the number, I will just tell you that throughout this interview today, we've had about 250 people joining us. I think many more will still watch us in recording. So it felt incredibly great to be able to talk both about the books, the adaptation, the process of friendship with others, etc., and also touch up on the ninth house, because that felt not like the final of this conversation, but essentially like the start of a new one, much darker one, much more bonkers one. And I'm hoping that as soon as the second book comes out, we'll go as deep as we need.
We will have another chat then. We can talk about it. Then I won't have to worry about spoilers. We can have, like, if you've read it, come to the chat. Then we can have like a whole talk about it.
Yeah, that is going to be a great idea. Okay, so the last number that my administrator gave us, okay, let me change it from
afterwards. Yeah.
Now, I'm not only the moderator and translator of this talk, I'm also the currency expert. I need to see what is the dollar to hryvnia rate. Just a second. This is taking longer than it needs to.
You can also email me after. It's not a one-time only offer.
Could you please just add your email in the chat section so that I know where to send it?
Is that safe? Not everybody can see it.
No. Everyone, it's just you and me and the admin. Everyone else won't see that.
Okay. I was like, I'll put my email in the chat. There we go.
Okay, so the number that we were able to gather is actually $200. To be precise, 194.7.
Okay.
And in hryvnias, that is 7,400 hryvnias, which is a great amount of money, because that will definitely help us out with a lot of. Oh wait, we have a bigger sum. So as soon as you've announced that you're going to double the amount of money that people have donated, that the donations have jumped from 7,400 to 9,600, and dollars wise, it's 252.6.
Okay. If you would just email me the link to where I should send, I will do it.
Sure.
Okay.
I think either me or the publishing house will reach out to you right after this discussion and give you the number. Okay, so yep.
See everyone, but I just wanted to say thank you for being here and for reading my books, and that we're all thinking about you guys. And I hope we can do another chat soon.
Любі друзі, дякуємо за те, що ви були з нами. Дякую за те, що читаєте книги Лі Бардуго, що прийшли на цю розмову і донатили кошти. Ми зібрали 9600 гривень, що у доларах є трошечки більше, ніж 250 гривень. $250 Лі продублює цю суму. І Лі щойно нам пообіцяли, що як тільки вийде друга книга у трилогії про Алекс Стерн. Ми знову зберемось з нею, ми поговоримо про стільки темряви, скільки вона вписала у свою книгу, і нарешті зможемо не боятися спойлерів, і зможемо насправді крутяцько поговорити. Lee, once again, thank you for taking the time. I'm hoping this was as amusing for you as it was for me. I had a great time. So have a great day ahead of you. Thank you from all the fans in Ukraine. And I really hope that one day when there's peace, when we've rebuilt everything, we'll be able to invite you to some literary festival here and actually be able to introduce you to the amazing people who are here with us for this hour. Thank you.